Hey, this is Rustin with Examiner.com, and with me the exceedingly talented Emily Armstrong of Dead Sara. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Beautiful day.
You got about a week off before you guys kick off your tour with Bush in Billings, Montana, of all places. That's a strange place to start a tour.
I know, right?
Before you guys kick out on the tour, I want to get the word out there so people get out to the show and everything and check you guys out. So let's talk a little bit about the band. I know you and Susie have been musical soulmates for ages, it seems like, but give us a little backstory on how you guys came together and ultimately how that led to the formation of Dead Sara.
Well, we met through a mutual friend. Somebody I had grown up with introduced me to her. We were like, she was 16, I was 17, 18, or still in high school. And we just started playing music. You know, we both had, similar interests in playing music or whatnot. So since that day, we've been a band, but we've had various different lineups, friends filling in or just hiring musicians and, trying to figure out who exactly we were and what we wanted to do. It's taken a few years to do so until we met our current lineup 2 years ago. And from that, it just made so much sense. It clicked. We wrote Weatherman, the first song, when we all were there together. It's going very smooth.
That was one of the songs I wanted to ask you about later on, too, but since you brought it up, we'll jump straight to that real quick. Because the album, your debut album is loaded with great tunes, but Weatherman is one of my favorite songs. What's the story behind that one?
Well, it's pretty much about having your own voice and, just having the freedom of speech and, you know what I mean? And it's pretty much, I would like to leave it at, what people think it is. Because I know that the lyrics are not exactly a storytelling
Right.
lyrics and stuff. And I get a kick out of people, they think it is for them, and I love that. I actually like that more. Well, yeah.
Seeing what their interpretation is, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and I'm still digging through it, and every time I listen to the album, that's one of the things I was saying. Every time I listen to the album, I pick up something new, and it's become, because I keep talking about you guys, and everybody's like, well, what do they like? What do they sound like? And at first, it felt like, when I listened to it, I'm like, it's sort of like Melissa Etheridge meets U2, but then there's also this raw, punky vibe in places.
Yeah.
I just can't nail it down. So how do you guys actually approach the songwriting in the band?
Well, it's fairly easy. We just basically somebody comes up with a riff or something in the rehearsal room. I mean, this is the main. There's other ways that we do it, but this is the one that we usually go with. Susie or Chris comes up with something, or I come up with something, and on the guitar, and I'll start singing, and just kind of getting a feel of the song, and then the whole band starts, jamming for a good 10, 15 minutes, and we just kind of press record, because we have a little bit of recording device in our rehearsal, and then from that we dissect the song. We listen to it back and go, God, this part was great, this is great, we can work on this, and that's basically the gist of how we did this record. So
rather than sitting down and thinking about, okay, we're writing a song, we're going to do this here, you guys actually are more of a jam-oriented writing unit.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. But then from that, we kind of okay, cool, that was fun, but now it's let's put the song together. Right. And then that's where it gets, more tricky.
Right. And one of the questions everybody asks me is, where did they come up with the name of the band? So obviously, being a new band, you're going to get asked that quite a bit. So what's the story on the band name?
Sure. Well, it just comes from a Fleetwood Mac song, Sara.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, she says, that's Sara, or said Sara, or dead Sara. It sounds like it's dead Sara, and Susie and I loved that, And one day, we were just kind of why don't we have it as a band name? And that we were just yeah. We both agree on it, and that was the one name that we both could agree on. So we're just to hell with it, let's keep it. Yeah.
Hard coming up with a band name these days, right? It's you got to put 3 or 4 words on a wall and just throw darts.
Exactly. we tried that, and we just, like, after a week, you know, one of us didn't like it, and so, you know, I was just like, but Dead There was just one that kind of stuck, you know, throughout the ages, a few years.
Doesn't really commit you to anything sonically, so, but, well, you have a very unique yet familiar vocal style, and it's both dynamic and engaging. When did you start singing, and vocally, who have you drawn influence from?
Well, when I started playing guitar, 11, 12, I didn't consider myself a singer. I wanted to be a guitar player. But I wrote a lot of songs, and I put a band together a couple times. You know, I was 12, 13, and I'd always have singers sing, right?
Right.
And I would kind of help them, teach them to sing, you know? And it just so, you know, when I was like 14 or something, it just kind of, I could never get the singer to sound the way I wanted it to, you know? And so I was like, you know what? The only way that's going to happen is if I do what's in my head. And so I started singing around there, actually, like, okay, I'm going to be a singer, you know? But I had a lot of work ahead of me, you know? I didn't start off good, you know? So, and at that time I was listening to a lot of 60s and 70s. And so I really drew influences with a lot of folk at the time. And, you know, and Jefferson's Airplane, and even, you know, Stevie Nicks, Robert Plant. There was a lot of that who I try and sounded like, and that's where I learned to sing, was, you know, trying to sound like them. And then at one point I was like, okay, who am I? And so it's just kind of like it developed.
Right.
Like throughout more than 10 years, you know, I didn't start off good at all. I didn't want to be a singer, you know. I was like, I'm not going to be a singer when I grow up. I'm just going to be a guitar player, songwriter. Well, yeah.
Well, and it's a very unique style of voice where, I mean, the way that you enunciate and put your voice out there and everything, it's like you can go from passionate to plaintive and just like a nuance, and it's really really intriguing to listen to. But
thank you.
And it comes across very well on the album. Now the album's going to be coming out in October, I believe.
October 11th, yeah.
October 11th. So, and you guys are going to be on tour with Bush for how long now?
Well, right now what's confirmed is about, I think it's a 7-date tour, so it like goes out to about 10 days or 11 days, I think.
Okay, so just a short one.
Yeah, and then we're talking right now. I mean, when we get back, we're going to finish our residency at the Viper Room. Because right before we leave, we start our residency on the 8th, September 8th, and then we go on this little short tour, come back and finish a couple dates, and then hopefully go back on tour.
Now, I know you like for people to draw their own interpretation of what the songs mean, but for you, where do you draw your lyrical inspirations from?
My lyrical inspirations? You know, when we're, you know, playing in the rehearsal room, and I'll just come up with some kind of like a free flow type of thing, stream of consciousness,
right?
You know, to say in the least, and it just kind of comes out, you know, and then I'll decipher from that, like, okay, this is what I'm going to say, and then I kind of put the lyrics into perspective, for the most part.
Right. I know all the songs on the album are children to you guys, and you love them all equally, but are there a couple of tracks on the album that have special meaning for you?
Special meaning. Face to Face is one that has special meaning, but I think right now it's Weatherman, just because it was the first song that we wrote together, and it really, I think, it's like a really, really good one to play live too.
Right.
That we all just like fucking go crazy and nuts to. It's just a hell of a good time on stage. So it just kind of, in both, you know, and then listening to it too, and having it as our first single right now, and just finished our video for it. So it's just kind of all over the place in our world. So, and we're not sick of it yet. So
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So what was it like doing your first video for your first album? What was that experience like?
First video, first album. Well, we first did Sorry for It All. But this was our first single, and it was very, very hard. Just because it's obviously a very hard rock number off the album. So we did a lot of performance shots. So we basically had to perform the song 12 times or whatever.
Right.
And on concrete, that could get really, in our boots, and we just all wanted to die. But, by the end of it, we were just so tired. I mean, I had a show the next day, and I was just like, oh, God. But it was fun at the same time, just because the excitement was, this is basically our first video, our first single, and so, the spirits were high and everything, even though it was hard work.
All right. One of my favorite songs on the album, besides Weatherman, obviously, is Test on My Patience. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, I mean, what do you want to know about it? I can go all day about it.
Just tell me the backstory on it, and what it means to you guys and stuff. I know you don't want to give too much away, but
sure. Well, it started off, that was a riff Susie had for a while, and before this current lineup, I was trying to finish that song on my own, in my apartment or whatever, from what Susie had wrote already and had written, and I tried to, finish it, and I just kept getting stuck, and then when we brought it to the current lineup, we had this little bit, it wasn't finished. It just seemed to have been very easy, and they were very helpful to, putting it as a group, finishing the song. It came out very good. Something I couldn't do by myself, obviously, just sitting there, and really brought life to it. And we actually just did that one acoustically. It's going to be on, we're selling and giving our single, on tour. Right. We're going to be doing a singles CD, and there's going to be a bonus track, which is that one, acoustic.
Nice.
Which would be cool.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, before we get out of here, this is because it's that time of the year, I'm sort of asking everybody I'm talking to the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. This is the 10th year anniversary of 9/11. And for our generation, for my parents' generation, everybody's like, where were you when JFK was assassinated? Where were you when 9/11 happened, and how did that impact your life?
Well, I remember I was outside the school on a patio, and somebody said the Twin Towers, and I was like, the what? I was really young, and but of course, when the teacher just sat us down and said, this is what's going on, this is what this is what that is, and it was shocking. I was absolutely devastated, and I remember just writing a lot, and what it meant to me at the time, just kind of processing it, and made me really think about the world in general, not just that,
right.
Just what's going on, war and things like that, things that happened in the past, and what does our future look like, and, things that are important to be, not to just be thinking about, but to be participating in,
Right.
And Weatherman has a little bit of that, it's very, speak up, and,
It's funny, when I first listened to Weatherman, it sort of gave me just the feel of the song lyrically and musically, gave me a feel of going back to that whole late 60s, early 70s, that vibe of all the political stuff that was going on, and the movements and everything. And, but here we are, how many years later, and that's coming out in your music again.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing all of this stuff with me. We're looking forward to seeing you here when you're in Boise, and we just can't wait for the album to come out so everybody can get their ears on it. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk again soon, and you can tell me what it's like getting out on the road with Bush, and how the response to the album is.
Thank you so much for having me.